I want to bring in Court TV legal correspondent Shanley Painter and defense attorney Chris Crawford, who are both outside of the courthouse, and Aaron Hendrickson, who is in the studio with me. Let's talk about this verdict. First, Shanley, during the course of the trial, did you notice a lot of note-taking on the part of the jury, and were they allowed to submit written questions to the witnesses?
Well, you know, Beth, this was sort of unusual. Of the trials that we've covered, usually the jury is taking a plethora of notes throughout every testimony, and this trial, I saw very few notes. Maybe of the 15 jurors sitting up there, 3 consistently took notes throughout the trial, so that was a little bit unusual. And unlike prior trials, this jury was not allowed to ask questions following each witness, so it surprised me that they weren't taking as many notes, and it only took almost a little less than 3 hours to deliberate.
Interesting. What do you know about the backgrounds of the jurors? I don't know if you are aware, if you were there when the jury was selected, or if that information was even made public. Do you know anything about the backgrounds?
I was not there during jury selection, but the final jury who deliberated were 7 men and 5 women. The ages seemed pretty diverse. Of the women, they were probably 40 or older, and the men ranged from 30s all the way probably to the 60s age range. The foreperson was actually one of those 3 who took notes consistently throughout the trial. He was probably a man in his 50s. The final 12 were all Caucasian ethnicity, and so that's pretty much all I know about that. But it was interesting that the foreperson was one of those note takers.
And no jurors, to your knowledge, yet have agreed to talk, right?
Not yet.
Okay, great. Now, Chris Crawford, let me ask you a question about Florida and the prisons there. Where is Ashley McCarthy going to be housed? Is there just one prison for women or a couple?
There's a couple, but before we get there, I kind of want to talk about the sentence that you just heard being announced by the judge. What's important to understand is even though the judge said 25 years minimum mandatory, that only has to do with the fact that a firearm was used in this offense. That relates to Florida's 1020 life. The actual sentence, what Ashley McCarthy will be serving, is life in prison. First degree murder is a capital offense. In the state of Florida, there's only 2 sentences you can get, life or death. And because this was not a death penalty case, she will be serving the rest of her life in prison. What will happen is she'll leave Escambia County. She'll go to what we call a sorting facility. They call them annexes. She'll basically get her state of Florida DOC number, and then they will send her off to a high security women's prison because of her life sentence.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying that, because when I was looking at the statute earlier today, I was trying to figure out why this wasn't a capital case. So technically, it qualified as a capital case, but they chose not to seek death. Is that right?
Yes. So in Florida, we have many different charges that are actually capital cases. This is a capital case. One of the big things that you'll see in this case is it was charged through an indictment. We only charge capital cases through indictment. All the other kind of offenses that you can have charged are normally done with what we call an information. So this is a capital case, even though, as you said, we heard those impact statements from the victim's family, the aunt. There was no choice that this judge had but to sentence Ashley McCarthy to life based upon the jury's verdict.
And that's why it was a 12-person jury, right? It would have been a 6-person jury for anything other than capital murder or first-degree murder.
Absolutely. That's why we had a 12-person jury. Everything else is normally 6. There are some offenses that are capital, but they're not at the same level as first-degree murder. What those are normally is capital sexual battery involving minors. Those we will have a little bit less, but absolutely 12 juries because this is a capital offense. The only sentence that could be rendered was life.
Got it. So she will never be a free woman. It's really So she'll see a parole board on the firearms, but she's never going to get out on the murder, right?
Correct. Absolutely. She's never getting out. You know, I don't mean to be morbid, but she's only leaving in a wooden box. And I'm sure that's exactly what the victims' families want.
All right, thank you for clarifying that because I was confused in reading the statute earlier today. I want to thank Chanley Painter for an outstanding job all week in the field. Thank you, Chris Crawford. I want to thank Erin Henriksen also for joining me here in the studio. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more follow-up to the verdict in Florida versus Ashley MacArthur.